Welcome back to the Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast. At long last, well, Ben Polacco is back, most importantly, but at long last, it's playoff time. It's finally fucking playoff time. Could not have picked a better night to have Ben Polacco back on our show. Ben, it is great to see you, my friend. How are you?
It's good to be here, boys. It's the greatest time of year, right?
Yes, it is.
You know, Christmas is right behind it, but this is what we're all here to talk about. I'm pumped. Let's do it.
Number one.
That's right. Let's do it. And as always, today's show is brought to you by Xenopucks. Thank you to them as always for willing to sponsor this chaos. So, let's jump into it now. I know it is playoff time, but there are just a couple quick things I do want to get to before we start doing playoff previews. In the past few days, we've had a couple of retirees, a couple commentators who were in the league a long time retired, and now a couple of players have retired as well. So from the Columbus Blue Jackets, Jeff Rimmer, after 20 years of being the team's play-by-play commentator, is calling it quits. He's retiring, and whether you like him or hate him, Boston Bruins longtime commentator Jack Edwards is retiring. Unfortunately for Jack, there's some issues with his speech going on. They can't quite figure out what it is. So unfortunately for him, it's probably a lot earlier than he wanted to go out. And I know Bruins fans, this is not the way you wanted to see Jack Edwards end his career, but it's best for his health is most important. And he's got a lot of great memories with this team. So I'm sure he'll be missed by the team and the fans.
I can absolutely agree to that on the Jack Edwards standpoint. I mean, there were a lot of very good memories there and a lot of memories that make me lucky and proud to be a Bruins fan. But like you said, I'd say really in the last year or two, there's been a noticeable difference that something's off. So unfortunately it is that time, but it was a hell of a run, man.
Yep. So good on him for getting out now. And yeah, it was definitely tough. You watched Bruins highlights and they had a lot of great moments this season. And it was tough to hear him struggle like that. And there's a lot of times where Andy Brickley kind of had to jump in and help him kind of put his sentences together. And so, not the way you want to see a career end for anybody, but glad Jack's getting out and he can retire and relax. And for Jeff Rimmer, absolutely outstanding. I feel like he could do this 20 more years. He's just really good.
Yeah, I'm going to let Ben comment on that because Ben's definitely a Blue Jackets fan. So,
yeah. Rims is great, man. 20 years. I couldn't believe it had been 20 years just in Columbus. Like they show a lot of old clips of him throughout the season. And man, this is almost black and white footage, his first stuff. You know, it was like the longest time ago. He's like, I was feeling like he's one of those guys that's just still like left from the old guard. Well, he's exiting now, but
right.
He's just such a classic broadcast guy in the way he presents the game. It's like almost becoming like a lost art in a way, but I'm going to definitely miss his calls.
Yeah.
I think we all will. He does bring the game to life.
And it's what's one thing that's always weird to me too, is like, this might sound stupid, but during the broadcast, like his broadcasting voice, I don't feel like matches how he looks in person, if that makes any sense.
My wife said that. Like they were showcasing him right for his last game, and she's like, "Is that the guy that I always hear?" Yeah,
that's him. No. Great commentator. He will be missed throughout the league. Just all around great guy, great commentator.
Let's move on. We had a couple Stanley Cup champions that retired at the end of this season. Jeff Carter, won 2 Stanley Cups with LA, played over 800 games in the league. Played a long time in Philly, had a kind of a not so great run in Columbus. A lot of Jackets fans are not overly thrilled about Jeff Carter's existence. His exit from the team was much maligned, and to add salt to the wound, he went to LA and won a Stanley Cup his first year there. But aside from that fiasco, Jeff Carter had a fantastic career, and definitely he'll probably be in the Hall of Fame almost certainly. I mean, it's hard to. He was the final piece to the puzzle for LA when they won the cup in 2012. I mean, they had a really deep team on defense. Jonathan Quick was playing amazing. They just couldn't fucking score, and they got him, and that really turned on the offense and won him a Stanley Cup, and then another 2 years later.
Man, Jeff Carter. I remember the first time I actually started liking Jeff Carter was playing NHL 16. I think I got his card for my Hut team, and that went for the longest time. He was the best player on my team, so I was like, all right, Jeff Carter.
Hey, 2016 Jeff Carter. That's a good fucking player.
Yeah, he was great. I'm not knocking him at all, but on my Hut team, you don't want that to be your best player.
Yeah, that's fair. For the other player was Pavel Francouz of the Colorado Avalanche. Unfortunately, his career is also ending due to health-related reasons. I forget, it's escaping me what his injury was, but essentially he's just not going to be able to get to a point physically where he can come back and play. I mean, being a goalie is a very difficult job as it is, and you need to be in 100% peak shape, and it just doesn't seem like it's in the cards for Francouz. So I know for Avalanche fans, this is really tough. I was reading the Facebook comments on one of the posts today about Francouz, and they were just absolutely heartbroken. And, you know, I guess if I can offer any solace to this, it's that he might not ever, obviously he's not ever going to play again, but you won't be able to take away the fact that he's a Stanley Cup champion. He was part of a really good team, and he'll always have that no matter what.
Well
I
said.
agree. Oh, I didn't know if I cut you off. My bad.
Well said.
All right.
So again, a little somber, but definitely wanted to give Francouz his flowers. I mean, hate to see a young guy go out like that, but yeah, he's a Stanley Cup champion. Carter's the Stanley Cup champion. Rimmer and Edwards both had fantastic broadcasting careers. So, you know, hopefully we can all be so lucky to see retirement.
You could argue that Jack Edwards is a Stanley Cup champion.
Hey, you know. He was on it. He would commentate for a team that won a cup. I'm pretty sure
he's got a ring.
I would say I'm pretty sure the broadcast teams do get rings. So that's
yes,
cool.
they do.
Yeah.
All right. Who wants to talk about the playoffs?
Not me.
Okay. All right. That's the end of the show. It's good seeing you, everybody.
All right, guys. Good night.
All right. So, man, we have 8 really good series in the first round here. I don't even know where to start. I guess I have them all listed out here on my show prep. I guess I'll just read them off in the order that I have them written. Let's start in the West with the Winnipeg Jets and the Colorado Avalanche. So Colorado, we know their story on offense. They're nearly unstoppable. They can fill in the net. All their woes have been in the goaltending department. It is their Achilles heel. They did not beat the Jets one single time this regular season. And I know playoffs is a different animal, but based on the style of hockey the Jets play, I got to imagine if you're an Avalanche fan, you're a little concerned here.
Ben, you want to go first?
Yeah, no, I agree. You know, I was, first of all, like I was thinking as we preface here the matchups, they didn't give us a lot of time this year, did they? The regular season ends. The West was settled
last night. Yeah,
right?
it took LA had a crazy comeback against Chicago right at the end of the game, and so we literally came down to the last few minutes of the season before.
Like, can you remember? In recent memory, I can't remember a time where like I feel like I didn't have like a week to like dig in, right, and like come up with like all my predictions and everything. Like this was like boom, you better be ready. So yeah, I mean with Colorado and Winnipeg. That's like one of those series where the arguments when people make, you know, the current status of the playoffs and the divisions and the matchups, like this is an example for that, where you have 2 dogs going at it right off the bat. This is a classic, like one team that's a Stanley Cup contender is going home. So that's like my first thought with this is, okay, this is a powerhouse series. The Jets are that team that like, I've picked them like 3 out of the last 6 years to win the cup. They always seem like they got something going on, and then it gets to the playoffs and they just kind of flop. So, you know, but I like them, man. Like I'm like kind of a more of a playoff guy where it's like, I'm looking at the whole roster. I'm looking at depth. I'm looking at like heart and grind, and I'm looking at stuff that like you don't look at during the regular season. And I like Winnipeg. But yeah, this series is should be a fun one.
This will be a really high octane series. Andrew, what are you thinking?
I'm taking Winnipeg for that series. Nothing against the Avalanche. They're a good team. They're a dangerous team. I'm not basing it off the regular season. I know we've talked about that a million times. I'm not. I just think Colorado just doesn't have what it takes to come out of this series. And I'm not even basing that off their season series against the Jets. I just think the Jets are the better team right now. And I think Connor Hellebuck is going to stand on his head.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'm picking the Jets as well. Forgot to make my pick. I'm picking the Jets as well. For kind of the same reasons. It's crazy to otherworldly, like, but that's why you can't just pick the best player on best team. It's like otherwise McJesus would have 7 cups or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just think top to bottom, I think Colorado obviously has the star power, but goaltending is such a big deal in the playoffs, and I don't think Georgiev is as good as Kemper was when he was just okay to a cup.
Yeah.
So when you have Hellebuck back there and you still have guys like Scheifele and Connor on the Jets that can score highlight reel goals and be absolute studs, you look at the Jets, like their whole top 12, like you just call it a top 12 with them.
Yeah.
Because they just run them. And they got, I think I read something the other day, like they have more 10 goal score. Like every guy on the team has 10 or more goals. Like they're just,
they get good depth scoring. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Don't mind me right now. I'm having some internet connectivity issues, so I had to kill my camera to kind of save the bandwidth there. I don't know what the hell's going on, but
we talked about this before the show too. This happens from time to time.
Yeah, it's been a pain in the ass the last few episodes, especially.
I don't want to mention the internet provider's name, but it rhymes with rectum for a reason. So
yeah. Now, yeah, no kidding. That's boy, we could do a whole episode on that. Anywho, for myself, to your point, Ben, they do get really good depth scoring. Obviously, you can't say enough good things about Connor Hellebuck and the job he's done in net for them. Their top end talent's great. They have really good speed. Their top scorer this year was Mark Scheifele. Only had about 70 points. So no superstar level scoring, but that's not really their MO. Their MO is they're attacking you with all 4 lines, and they're going to shut it down once they get the lead because they have the best goalie right now in the league. I got to take Winnipeg in this series, man. I'm going to base a little bit off of the regular season performance, especially since they played each other so recently. Alexander Georgiev has just been terrible lately for Colorado, and he's the guy they're going with for the playoffs. Justus Annunen hasn't been especially great lately. Andrew, you and I talked before the deadline about Colorado really needed to get a goalie, and I think this series will almost certainly prove why they needed to. And so, unless Georgiev finds another gear and turns it on for the playoffs, I really just can't see them beating Winnipeg with Connor Hellebuck in net. I'm
with you on that, and I think there's good offensive talent on both teams, obviously, but if this is going to come down to goaltending, it's Winnipeg by a country mile. Hellebuck is light years ahead of Georgiev, and unfortunately for Colorado, Georgiev is their better goaltender right now. So I don't see any scenario where Winnipeg doesn't come away with the series.
I got the Jets in 5 on this one. What do you guys think?
I got 5 for that as well.
I'm going to say Jets in 6 because God, Nate McKinnon, man. I just feel like, first of all, quick comment on Georgiev. I got to get it off my chest, okay? Because I got him in fantasy this year. He leads the league in wins, right? We just see the posts on NHL. It's like leader in wins. You're like, oh man, must be good. But every week I'm getting killed because his goals against is 4 every week.
Yeah.
So but man, McKinnon, I love watching this guy play. I can't say enough. I feel like we got to mention him in this conversation because like he's right up there with McDavid in my opinion right now, like as far as best player on earth.
Yes.
And I just think he's going to put the team on his back, and I don't think he's going to let them get away with any less than two dubs.
That's very fair. And me taking Winnipeg in 5, it's not to disrespect Colorado. I just really think Georgiev's that bad. Yes, he actually finished this season first in wins, 38 wins.
But that's not because of him.
No. So, and here's my next point. Goals against average 3.02. That's 34th in the league. Save percentage 897 for the year. That's tied for 39th. That is a really bad season. That's a goalie who's just playing on a really good team that can fill in the net. And so I certainly wouldn't be surprised if Colorado wins this series or wins a couple of games, but if they don't, I think we know the exact reason why.
That's a terrible save percentage.
Yeah, man,
for
that's that.
an
I was
goalie.
expecting it to be at least a hair above 900. I did not think it was that low.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next series. Staying within the Central Division side of the bracket, we'll do the Dallas Stars against the Vegas Golden Knights. This is the top seed in the conference versus the number 2 wild card. As far as statistics, as far as quality of teams, you could argue these are 2 of the best teams in the conference. Ben, what do you think about Dallas versus Vegas as you're wearing a Vegas jersey?
Yeah, well, I was starting to mention it off air, but I am not a bandwagon fan. Just want to point that out. I'm wearing a Wild Bill Karlsson jersey because I'm a Jackets guy. He was the giveaway, or 40 goals giveaway to them in the expansion draft. Got to give a little props to the returning champs, right? Give them their due, but I think that they're running into just an absolute horse right now in the Dallas Stars. A lot of the national broadcast guys are picking Dallas, and for good reason. They're loaded, man. Much like we were just talking about with Winnipeg, like top to bottom, like they just have top 12 forwards. Their D is solid. They have Thomas Harley, came out of nowhere from last year. They just got help me from Calgary.
Tanev, Chris Tanev.
Yes.
Tanev. They just got Tanev on deep. Like they're just deep. Heiskanen can play 30 minutes a night. My only thing I would point out that maybe could be a problem for Dallas is the hot and coldness of Ottinger. There's no doubt the dude can be a stud.
Yeah, he was unreal the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, he can be crazy. I mean, just last night alone, he had 2 nutty highlight saves, but he can also be human, very human, and we've seen that before at times. That's really the only thing you can point out as being a weakness for Dallas. I mean, Vegas, I don't have the exact stat, but I was just listening on NHL radio. Like, since their crazy start, like 11-0-1, I think it was, to begin the season.
Yeah.
They've only been like a few games above 500. So they haven't been like a dominating team this season.
Yeah.
Now I'll give them, the champ kind of little bit of for kind of like little props, due credit, right? I think that they're going to bring it in the postseason. I see this series being maybe longer than some people do. I'm going to go with Dallas, but I think this is actually going to be a 7-gamer. I think this is going to be exchanging blows. And I think this year, whereas last year Dallas kind of imploded off of that Jamie Benn play. If you guys remember, in the one game that kind of led his, lack of discipline really led to Vegas taking over.
Oh my God. Yeah. That was a airhead play. That's right.
I think
completely
they're going to turn it back. I think they're going to turn it back this year. I think they're going to avenge that. And I think they're going to get by.
Now, I will say to that point, you mentioned Vegas's record kind of fell apart after that really hot start. Vegas had more games missed due to injury from players this season, more than any other team in the league. And they weren't insignificant injuries. They were top players. They missed Eichel for a lot of the year. They've missed Stone the last couple months. They didn't have. I think Dorofeev was out for a while. Barbashev was out. I'm pretty sure was out for a while. They've had injuries to some really good players. Their goalies have had injury trouble. I think they're finally connecting all the pieces here. A lot of people are saying Mark Stone wasn't actually hurt. If you saw the play he got injured on, it's hard to say that he was faking it. I really don't think he was. The timing, yes, is questionable, but it is what it is. The bottom line for me with Vegas is that they're just a really good team. Like Dallas, they are extremely well coached. I don't think coaching's an issue on either side of this. For me, this was kind of one where I felt like I had to toss a coin, and I felt like I'm going to give Vegas the edge in this series. I definitely agree with you, Ben, that I think it'll be a pretty lengthy series. These are 2 very good teams. And so I don't think you can really go wrong with reasoning in picking either of them, but ultimately I'm going to give the edge to the defending champions, especially if Mark Stone is good to go for game 1. Hurdle's come in now that he's back from injury. He's been excellent for them. He's kind of brought that power play to life. Eichel's going again now. It's hard for me to pick against Vegas, at least in this round. So I can see the argument for both, but in my bracket, I got Vegas in 6.
I'm on like both ends of the spectrum right now.
It's a tough series. This is probably one of the most evenly matched ones.
I think it's also worth noting that I made multiple brackets, and in one of my brackets I actually have Dallas winning, because I thought Ben brought up some good points. However, in my official bracket that I'm using for this show, I'm giving the advantage to Vegas. And most of that goes right along with what Brian said. You have Tomas Hertl back, given that power play life again. If Mark Stone is at 100%, there's just so many things that are going to click for this team. They're going to look just like they did last season. So in my heart and in my brain, I think Vegas comes away with this series. I don't see, I agreed to Ben's point. This is going to be a longer series than most people are probably expecting it to be, but I'm going Vegas in 6 on this one.
I also, for Vegas, they are going to get Will Carrier back, it looks like, from injury. So again, Vegas, like the Jets, is a team that'll throw all 4 lines at you and shut it down after they have the lead. That's Bruce Cassidy's style of hockey.
Yeah, and it works when the players want to listen to it. That just wasn't the case in Boston.
For Jake DeBrusco. What?
Yeah, no, you're right. 100% right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you got, before we move on, have you guys seen the memes or videos or whatever about Mark Stone?
No,
it just depends. It just depends which ones. I've seen 1,000 about his injuries.
It's like, okay, I just saw 2 that were hilarious about how he's always hurt, and then he just. So there's one from Willy Wonka where like the scene where the gates open and like he's on the cane.
Oh yeah.
And like everyone's like, oh, this dude is frail as hell. And then he does like a tumble and comes up and he's like, oh, there's that one. And then there's the one from like WWE, WWF, whatever, where the guy
with
comes
the Undertaker
out in a wheelchair.
Oh, no, that one.
I don't think so. The guy comes out in a wheelchair and he's got like, it looks like he's got his foot in a cast. So everyone's like, oh man, this dude's all banged up. And he rolls out. And then he gets up to the ring and he like rips the blanket off and he jumps up and he's all jacked and like it was just like a fake leg.
Yes,
like, cracks me.
Yeah,
dude, I love it, man. That's
for the wrestling fans. That's the Kevin Nash in the wheelchair. I remember that from.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great. That's a good one too. I was thinking the one of the Undertaker sitting up when he from laying in the casket. That's what I was thinking you were going to say when you mentioned wrestling.
That's good too. Yeah.
But yeah,
it all applies.
It does. It's a little suspicious, but Vegas hasn't said anything about Stone's availability. I mean, from what I've seen, he still hasn't practiced in a full practice with contact on. He's still been in a non-contact jersey, so he might really not be ready yet.
Well, let me also say this too, because I've seen a lot of people that are super butthurt about the whole Mark Stone situation. It's a loophole. There's nothing wrong with using it that way. Vegas is just taking advantage of it. Every team has that same opportunity to do it. So
also, really, who gives a shit? Like who? I mean, I know it's a little silly how they're really stretching this out and using this to their advantage, but like you said, every team can use it. And you know what? All 16 of these teams in the playoffs, well, except Washington, probably all 16 of these teams are very good teams that are more than capable of doing damage, regardless of cap situations. Just because Vegas, may have circumvented the cap here, doesn't guarantee them a cup. I mean, they're very good, but there's no guarantees in this sport at all. So,
well, that's what I'm saying. Just because they're doing it doesn't mean they're winning. So everybody just relax.
All right, let's move to the Pacific side of the Western Conference. So we'll start with the team that won the Pacific Division, Vancouver, and their opponent, the Nashville Predators. I think this will be a really fun series. You got 2 really passionate hockey cities. Both of them really yearning for playoff success. I know Vancouver's come close to that cup a couple times. Nashville a few years back as well. 2 cities that badly want it. Ben, what are you thinking of this one?
So this will be my first upset then of the night. I'm going to take the Preds.
Yes.
I'm going to take the Preds.
Oh, man.
I'm a big believer in general of the teams playing best going into the playoffs. You got to watch out. And I don't care who it is, right? Like I'm thinking back to, I was a Kings fan for a long time when they won it in 12, they were the 8th seed when it was in the old format. They came in hot. They won the cup. You look at St. Louis, worst to first a couple of years ago. Not saying it's all the time, but like typically the teams that come in and do well, Florida last year, right? They scrape in, but they were playing good hockey. So the Preds have impressed everybody the last little while. They had a short little losing streak there after their crazy run, but man, like there's something about it. I don't know. And you know what? Almost more than the Preds or like props to them. It's like I don't trust Vancouver. And I think it's because, again, like I always seem to gravitate towards like the hardworking, grinding style teams, right? Like especially like the new model of the champ. Like again, the champs right now are the Golden Knights the way they played last year. I don't see that with Vancouver. Like they're high flying. They got crazy skill at the top end. They won a shit ton of games this year. Obviously, they're a great team. Not like knock today. It's just like I don't know that they have the personnel to win a playoff series yet. So I'm taking the Preds, man.
Yes. That's fair. Andrew, what are you thinking?
Exactly what everything Ben just said. I'm taking the Preds in this one as well. I also have this series going 6 games. While I do think the Preds are going to come away with it, I don't think it's going to be a short series by any stretch. I think it's going to be kind of a bloodbath on both sides, but Nashville is not the team to sleep on. You and I can attest to that. I mean, and we saw them play a great game this year in person against Colorado. One instance I want to use to support this, and again, not basing it off this because it was regular season, but it's a good example of you never know. I was watching the game a few weeks ago. It was the Preds, and they were playing Vegas, actually. Vegas was up 4-0 at the end of the first, and I had a couple of friends. They're married. They were at the game, and they were like, we're probably going to leave if this doesn't shape up soon. I'm like, bro, it is the first period of the game. It's the end of the first. It's 4-0. There is a whole lot of hockey left in this game. Do not leave. And sure enough, the Preds turned it on in the third period, tied the game up late, and then Roman Josi scores the OT winner. You just don't know with this team. So I say Nashville in 6. It's going to be a bloodbath of a series, but I think Nashville comes out with it.
Fair enough. Ben, you said Nashville in 6 or 7,
yeah,
or
to clarify, I didn't say the games, but I'm right there with Andy. I'm going to go 6 games.
Yeah, I think 6 is the right length for this series. When I was making my bracket, I really wanted to go with my heart for this series. So my best friend is a Nashville Predators fan, and I truly would love for them to win this series. I did not pick them to win it. My concerns with Nashville are Saros hasn't been excellent lately, and a lot of their success depends on him shutting it down. So I'm a little concerned there. With the style of hockey teams need to play in the style of hockey teams need to play in the playoffs. My concern is that if Vancouver is able to shut down that top line of O'Reilly, Forsberg, and Nyquist, I don't think Nashville's got the answer for a lot of. I mean, Vancouver's really deep on the back end, and Thatcher Demko is really good for them in net. And I mean, he's healthy, he's ready to go for the playoffs. As much as I want the Preds to win, I went with Vancouver. I felt like it was the more logical choice, but boy, would I certainly be happy to be proven wrong on this one.
I hope you're wrong too.
Yeah, me too.
Not even for the Preds. I just want to be right. So
yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So, I mean, and again, and Nashville's no slouch. Again, if Saros is on, he's among the best goalies in the league. And on defense, Josi and McDonough are 2 super stout defensemen. Lauzon set an NHL record for hits in a season. I've always kind of liked Fabro's game. He's not especially flashy. I've just always liked his game. And you got Shen, who's a pretty good player, and Stastny, who they called up from Milwaukee's pretty solid option. And again, they're going to probably limit his time in the playoffs. I imagine Shen's going to get a lot of minutes, but Nashville's very stout defensively. I'm just concerned with their forwards. I am really afraid that, especially if they get into penalty trouble, that Vancouver will make them pay. All right.
See what happens.
Yeah, like I said, I truly hope I'm wrong. Like I said, my best friend is a Preds fan, and for his sake, I really hope they win this series. Let's move on and talk about a series that I have a sneaking suspicion we'll all pick the same team for. The Edmonton Oilers and the LA Kings for the 3rd year in a row in the first round.
Can we all just say our team and then just move on? Do we need to go into a bunch of detail?
1, 2, 3.
Hey,
the Oilers.
Edmonton.
Yeah. Listen, LA has some really good weapons. There's no doubt there. They have some really good talent. They have nothing in net. And if you have nothing in net, you're not winning against Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl. That their top six will run right the fuck over you. And Edmonton's back end is kind of well-rounded things this year. I've liked Bouchard's play. Ekholm's been really good. And so I don't think LA's got a chance here. I believe, let me pull up my bracket. I picked this as my only sweep of the first round.
Oh, I have 2 sweeps for the first round.
I have a feeling I know the other one, and we'll get to that because we're going to switch conferences shortly.
I think everybody knows.
I don't know. And I don't want to disrespect the Kings here because they have so much talent. They could go on a run and just knock over the Oilers like it's nothing. You never know. The playoffs are just a different animal, but man, it's just really tough to see a scenario especially with how hungry Edmonton is this year, and Skinner's playing a little bit better, and that I just don't see them LA beating them.
Ben, do you want to go first or
go ahead? You look ready.
Dude, I'm itching because I'm like, first of all, I just like, why is LA even in the playoffs, man? Like, it's the same thing with the Caps too, but we'll get to them later. Like, what are we doing?
Look at the teams in the West. Everybody sucked. So
yeah,
I mean,
including the Kings. So
look at the teams that miss. I mean, the common theme there, the two that almost made it in, St. Louis and Minnesota. I put it this way to just kind of appease you on this. Now, I know LA's a Pacific Division team, so this matchup wouldn't have happened, but replace LA with St. Louis or with Minnesota. Are you taking either of those teams over the Oilers? No,
not a chance.
So
no.
I think even though, we're kind of picking on LA here because that's who Edmonton's playing. You could put any of the teams that missed in here too. And I think Edmonton's beating them too. I think the only team that was taken out Edmonton in the first round was Vegas, who, because they lost, ended up drawing Dallas.
Well, let me put it to this way though too. Wow, that was a fucking sentence. Jesus, no, I'm only on my second beer, man. What the hell?
I was gonna say I knew he started drinking. I didn't know when though.
No, let me put it this way: had Minnesota made it, and don't let this go to your head because I know you're a Wild fan and I'm not, but I still think had the Wild made it and played Edmonton, Edmonton still not walks away, but Edmonton still comes away with the series win. But I think Minnesota puts up a better fight against Edmonton than LA. That's just my personal opinion. You got Marc-Andre Fleury on that team. So this is going to be a quick series, man. LA sucks. That's just the easiest way to put it.
It's tough to say, man. Gustafson and Fleury both had pretty bad years. Fleury had a nice little run for about 2 months, but as a whole, they were both sub 900 on the year. It's the reason the Wild missed the playoffs, but I see what you're saying. But again, I just think you throw any of those teams in, and you're right. I do think actually St. Louis and Minnesota could probably last longer than LA in a series. It just is what it is. So I'm glad this was a pretty easy pick though. I had a feeling we were all going to take the Oilers on this.
No,
one.
The only reason the LA Kings are here is because they had a hot start to the season and the rest of the conference sucked.
Now, I know because I had just remembered, you told me before we got on, or when we were talking earlier, I know who your other pick for a sweep is. So why don't we move to the East and talk about the New York Rangers and the Washington Capitals? The
Washington Capitals are going to sweep the New York Rangers.
You heard it first.
No,
you heard it on fresh ice first. Andrew, after hitting the largest crack pipe he's ever seen, has picked the Washington Capitals over the Rangers.
Just kidding, man.
No. Listen, the Rangers had a fantastic season. I know they won the President's Trophy and the President's Trophy curse. This is a really fucking good hockey team. This is a really good team. There is nothing about the Rangers that I don't like other than the fact that they play in New York. There's really, I mean, they are just good from top to bottom. Their biggest concern was Igor. He had such a tough start to the season. He's just been great lately, and there's no fucking way Washington wins this series. I give them one game because Charlie Lindgren, in the same respect, has had a good year for Washington. That team ain't beating the Rangers. I got Rangers in 5.
Okay. That's awfully generous.
Yeah. Hey, for the record, just to put it on camera, I'm going to give the Kings one game. I know we kind of moved on, but I want to put it on the record. I'm going to give them one game. I think they're going to get a home win off the back of some of their electric players on offense that they do have, and center depth. I think they'll be able with Kopitar and Deno to not shut down, but I think they could limit McJesus and the boys to maybe a couple points that night. So I'm gonna give them one just for the record.
Okay.
But in this series, the New York series. I agree. Same thing like Brian just said. I mean, they maybe are the most complete team the way I see it, as far as just every area. Dude, the Caps, man, like it's pretty well documented. Hopefully our listeners are smart and know. They were minus 36, I think was the final.
Minus 37.
Okay, excuse the minus 37 goal differential, negative goal differential in all three periods. If you look at the overall standings in the NHL, they actually finished behind St. Louis. Sorry, Blues fans, but you get what you get in the conference. So yeah, I just think this is one of those where it's like you're happy to see Ovi play more playoff hockey because like that's just cool. But man, this is gonna be a 4-gamer in my opinion.
Yeah, I no reason to think that. It's hard to for any team to get swept. I mean, these teams are also good. I always take one in the first round, but yeah, no, I think you hit it right on the head. The Rangers are just a very complete team, and a lot of the issues they had last year under Gallant was that they get Kane, they get Tarasenko, but Gallant's always a coach who, as soon as shit stops working, he's changing lines, he's changing strategy. Laviolette's more of a traditional coach. He likes to stick to his guns. He likes to go with what he knows works, and it's paid dividends for the Rangers. Obviously, they have the best record in the league. I think Laviolette's a better playoff coach. I mean, obviously, he's got Stanley Cup rapport. He won one with Carolina. He went to one with Philly. I want to say he went to one with Nashville, too. So he's a guy that knows how to get it done in the playoffs. Man, it's hard to see a scenario where the Rangers lose to anybody, but yeah, certainly not in the first round.
My turn.
Go ahead.
So first thing I want to say is Rangers in 2.
Yeah.
And you,
I missed the 3 button on the website.
You and I talked about this before Ben hopped on. Not only are the Capitals going to get swept, I'm saying they're not even going to hold a lead in any of the games. Ooh. That's how confident I am. Ooh. Nothing against you, Caps fans. That's just the way it is. Now, to Ben's point, I want to say anytime we get to see Ovi play playoff hockey, it's a good time. I don't know anybody who doesn't like Ovi, but the rest of the Caps, I don't care. They barely squeaked in, and that they only squeaked in because Detroit choked at all the right times for them. So, in my opinion, the Caps don't deserve this playoff spot. And neither did anybody below them.
I was going to say nobody did, so you had to go with the least bad team. Listen,
absolutely.
I want to do a quick aside here for this because this pissed me off the other night. I saw people complaining about what Tortorella did. Oh, he knew what he was doing, pulling the goalie. He knew Detroit had already tied it. I don't think he did, but here's the thing. Even if he knew, who cares? Listen, the Penguins who were still in it, that's his team's biggest rival. Detroit tying that game is what knocked Philly officially out of the playoffs. So even if he did know in his head, he'd be like, all right, well, I can choose to knock off my biggest rival and the team that knocked me off in one go. So whether he knew or not, it doesn't matter. Listen, it shouldn't have even come down to it. Detroit lost 7 fucking games in a row in March. That's what cost them the season. That's the bottom line. So the least bad team made the playoffs. And for me, being an Ovechkin fan, I think it's great to see him in the playoffs. I don't think they stand a chance, but no, that's the bottom line. And we have some friends that are Detroit fans, and I truly hoped they were going to make the playoffs for our friends, but you lose 7 in a row in one of the most critical times of the season. You can't be surprised when you miss.
Absolutely.
It sucked the way it came down to the wire, and then just for them to miss, but it is what it is. You can continue, Andrew.
Oh, I was just saying that the Caps don't stand a chance this season. I mean, the Rangers are just stacked. Absolutely. I mean, you take one component away from them and they're still a dangerous take away goaltending. They're still a stacked team. I mean, up and down the board, all the way down the middle, they're a better team. Take away hold on a second.
Sorry. Real quick, while Andrew's having his moment there, he mentioned the Caps won't hold a lead in any of the games. That just means he jinxed himself, and the Caps are going to score like 30 seconds into game 1.
Yeah, right.
That's usually how that
any money on it.
Yeah, I was say that's usually how that goes. But anyway,
sorry, I got a text from my wife.
That's all right. Those are important. No worries. I mean, messages from your wife. Obviously, wives are important, but so are the messages.
Well, yeah, wives are important too.
All right. I do want to move on then, since we are pretty well in the same boat on that one. The next one involves another New York team. It's the Carolina Hurricanes and the New York Islanders. Andrew, what do you think about this one? These are two teams that play a very similar brand of hockey, but one of them is a lot more loaded up on paper.
Yes, I'm going Carolina for this one. They've been very good lately. Freddie Anderson's looking incredible. I mean, he's been incredible for them. So, and I don't want to discredit anything that the Islanders are a good team, but I think Kuznetsov has been a great fit down in Carolina. There's just too much that's going right for Carolina right now for them not to come away with this series. So it's not going to be a sweep, but I do think Carolina takes this one in 5 games. That's my opinion. At the absolute max, 6. There's no way this is a sweep, and there's no way it goes 7 games. But definitely Carolina on this one. They're a dangerous team.
Ben, what do you think?
I could echo a lot of that. I was going to say not a sweep. Don't think it's going to be 7. I kind of settled. I was back and forth. I'm going to settle same thing. I think Carolina in 5. The Islanders used to, in very recent memory, as early as probably yet last year, the year before, were like that playoff team, right? I mean, I think it was 2 consecutive conference finals, and they were just like the team you never wanted to play, even though their personnel is pretty much the same. I feel like they've lost that, right? It's like they're not really feared as much anymore. I think, they got the stud goalie tandem, which actually it looks like it might be, not Sorokin, Varlamov.
Varlamov, yeah.
Maybe getting the nod to go. I mean, you trust whatever Patrick Waugh decides to do, obviously, but yeah, I think their goalies will steal them at least 1 game. The games are going to be tight, right? Like, I feel like this is a series where Carolina could win in 5 games, but they're like 2-1, 3-2, 2-0. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just think like Carolina has what they have not had in the past. 2 things really that's always the knock on them. Number 1 is goaltending. They have it now. Okay, Freddie's health, I feel like, is going to ultimately be the thing. Can this guy actually play hockey for more than a month and not get hurt? That's number 1. Second is they never had like the game breaker, right? Last year, it was Svechnikov that was hurt, and he was kind of considered like their game breaker. But then they got 2 guys that are proven game breakers in the playoffs, regardless of, Kuzi snorting coke and whatever on Instagram. Like the dude won a cup and was like, he was absolute stud a couple years ago.
He should have been playoff MVP that year. They gave it to Ovi because it's Ovi.
I was just thinking, like, wasn't he MVP? No, he should have been.
Yeah.
You're right.
He led the playoffs in scoring, though.
Right. And then Gensel's, he's a stud too. So it's like, yeah, I just think Carolina's they're deep as hell. Well, they might have trouble later, but the Islanders are not enough of a threat.
Yeah.
Well said.
I think you hit the nail right on the head with that. To your point about the Islanders and kind of being the same team they were the last few years, you're right. The personnel really hasn't changed. Their biggest problem is that the teams around them all got significantly better. I mean, drastically better. The Rangers in the last 3 years have loaded the hell up. They've gotten so much better. They've seen a lot of progression from Hedel and now Lafreniere and Kakko. Like they're Kakko to a lesser extent, but they've really gotten a lot more out of Lafreniere, and they've really gotten a lot out of Hedel. The Islanders just don't have that. They're pretty much the same team. Sorokin's a great goalie. Varlamov's a good goalie. But again, they play the kind of the same brand of hockey as the Hurricanes. The Hurricanes just do it so much better, and they have the game breakers. They have those elite scorers. They always get dogged on for their inability to score. They have the guys that can do it now. And to your point, a healthy Freddie Anderson's a dangerous Freddie Anderson. I mean, he had some really good years with the Leafs, and he had a fantastic run with the Ducks in 2015. I mean, when he's on, he's among the best. He's such a big goalie. It's hard to get him by him.
Right. And you don't hear his name a lot in those talks because, like Ben said, this guy doesn't play more than a month without getting hurt. So, but like Brian said, when he's healthy, that dude's a brick wall.
And I think that's why they wanted him. They didn't want him to come back until he was 1,000,000% healthy, because I think they know this is the last call. Like, you got to get it done. This has to be the year they get it done. So They wait till Freddie's healthy. He comes back. He's just been unbelievable since he's been back. They got the scoring weapons now. Like you guys, I actually picked the Hurricanes in 5, so we're all on the same page on that one. That'll be a really good series, even though I think it'll be short. I think each of those games will still be really close. But again, the personnel the Hurricanes have, I think, is what pushes them well past the Islanders.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
All right, let's see who's next on my random list I put together. Okay, next one on the list. We have 2 series left. I actually did save these 2 for last on purpose on my list because, Andrew, you have a dog in both these fights. Let's address the Battle of Florida first. The Florida Panthers, who won the Atlantic Division against the Tampa Bay Lightning, that is wild card number 1. What do you think, Andrew? That's your baby. The jersey's behind you. You live and breathe this damn team. What do you got?
Well, aside from going with my heart's instinct and who I want to win, I still am taking Florida to win this series. However, I think this series goes 7 games, and I'll tell you exactly why. First of all, both teams are stacked, goaltending and offensive. It's all around 2 good, complete teams. And the Lightning, with the season that Nikita Kucherov just had, has been absolutely unreal. And if we get playoff Vasi, it's good. We've seen what playoff Vasi does to the Florida Panthers in the past. However, I think offensively, the Panthers have the edge on Tampa this year. Sam Reinhart has had an unbelievable season. You've got Alexander Barkov, who is, I don't want to say he's Patrice Bergeron because he's not, but he's currently, in my opinion, the best 2-way forward in the league, hands
He should
down.
get some Selke consideration without
Absolutely.
a doubt. I will not be surprised if he wins it or is a finalist.
Right. Tarasenko's been a great fit since he got there. It's not like he's been a superstar since he's been with Florida, but he's been a good fit there. He's comfortable there. The team loves him. The fans love him. And then you have an outstanding goalie tandem with Stolars and Bobrovsky. And everybody knows Bobrovsky can be consistent, but when that dude is on, he is on, and you're not getting anything past him. And that showed in last year's playoffs. And you can argue his performance in the Stanley Cup final against Vegas, but a large part of that wasn't just Bob. So much of that team was just beat the hell up by the time the final rolled around. They didn't have a fighting chance in hell against Vegas. So I think as long as everybody's healthy, Ekblad and Oliver Ekman-Larsson are going to be ready to go for this series. I think it's going to be a long, hard-fought series, 7 games, but I got to give it to Florida in this one. I think they have the edge this year.
Ben, what about you, buddy?
All right, this might be my hot take for the night.
Oh boy, here we go. I'm just gonna take my headphones off.
Yeah, you got to take a pee break. Go for it. Yeah. God, man, I was thinking about this, and I kind of can't believe I'm saying it, but when you look at every year, there's always going to be something that like just like doesn't go the way that you think it's going to go, and like all year, Florida has just looked absolute stacked, and they're a tremendous team. Tampa, I feel like, first of all, I think it's going to go 7 games. I think it's going to come down to kind of one of those coin flip things where like these teams beat the tar out of each other. If you remember 2 years ago, everyone was in agreement. It was the best series of the whole playoffs. Yes. It was a first round matchup. So we're getting that again, which is awesome. And I think that Vasi's going to kind of round back into playoff form. I don't like Kucherov personally, but he's an insane hockey player. And I just think he's going to put up 3 points a night still. I just think he's going to, everything the dude touches, I think is going to end up going in the net. I think their power play is going to hit. I think it's going to be just back and forth, brutal, awesome, entertaining hockey. And I see it coming down to a game 7. And I feel like I just flipped that coin and it kind of came up Tampa Bay. And I don't even fully know why. It's like I had to pick something that was just kind of like felt shocking. Here it happens. And right. A little bit I still factor in like that pedigree that they do have. I like the addition of Duclair. I think
he's been really good.
I think Vasilevsky is worth noting that this guy has been a workhorse playing 60 plus games a year. Here's the first time that he's had a season where he comes in. He only played however many games he played, but it was
he missed like 2 or 3 months. Yeah.
So he's coming. He's going to be. Remember how much hockey did those guys play over those 3 seasons, right? So you got a guy who overall his body's in better shape. We know what he can do. Sorry, Andy. Something about it, man. I had to go that way.
I don't disagree with you, Brian. I know you got your takes. I'll let you get to it in a second. I don't disagree with you, especially with the Duclair pickup. When Duclair was in Florida, I think Anthony Duclair is very much a product of the team around him, and I think that showed, especially when he was in Ottawa, who is notoriously awful. He really didn't do anything there, and then he came to Florida and he thrived up until he was injured, obviously, but he was such a good fit in Florida. He went to San Jose, was pretty much ho-hum there, and now he's been good in Tampa. So he's very much a product of the environment around him. So I do think that's a good pickup, and I think you got some really good valid points. I obviously don't want Tampa to win, and I really don't think that's that much of a hot take, though, because I'm kind of in the same boat with you. I can see it going either way. I think Florida still has the upper edge, but you made some good points.
I agree with you guys on it being a 7-game series. I have concerns on both sides. My biggest concern for Tampa Bay is the uncertainty with Mikhail Sergachev. They're hoping he's back by round 2. Problem is, will they make it to round 2? So that's the big thing for them is missing Sergachev. I mean, their back end is still pretty well loaded up. I mean, Hedman's outstanding. Chernak and Perbix have been really good. The acquisition of Matt Dumba has kind of filled in the gap there. Dumba had a really terrible run with the Coyotes this year, and kind of has admitted since being traded that it more had to do with his environment, and he just wasn't happy in the arena, whole mess there. It just wasn't a good fit for him. I think he's fit in quite well with the kind of game that John Cooper has Tampa Bay playing. So I just want to see if they can get Sergachev back, because that can make a world of difference for them. Now, they've been ridiculous lately. They're one of the hottest teams in the league right now. Vasilevsky's been going crazy lately. I mean, it doesn't seem like they can lose a game. Their power play's clicking. I mean, Kucherov, again, he's a fantastic hockey player. He's probably either going to be first or second in MVP voting. But I mean, for Christ's sake, they have a line of Sorelli, Stamkos, and Hagel, and it's not their top line. Their top line, Duclair, Point, and Kucherov. They will absolutely tear apart anybody they play, especially in the regular season. But on the other side, you have Florida too, and Florida has been great all year. Bobrovsky and Stolarz have been really good in net for them. I don't think the Magic's quite as much there with Bobrovsky this year. I do think he's, especially the last month or so, he's been a little more human. But the addition of Tarasenko has been really good for them too. So my big concern for the Panthers is that is Bobrovsky going to continue to play at this elite level that he's mostly played at this season, and he was in the playoffs last year? And is Ekblad really healthy coming back, or is he just coming back because it's the playoffs and he doesn't want to let his team down? So I have my concerns with that there. And because both of these teams are so good, Ben, like you said, it felt like a coin flip. I did go with the Tampa Bay Lightning in 7 games. They've just been the better of the two teams lately. And because they're more healthy, and I think Vasilevsky's on a heater right now, I think it's going to be tough for the Panthers to stop them. Because obviously, Andrew, you and your wife are huge Panthers fans. I was cheering for them all the way to the finals last year. And they played great, and I hope they win for you guys. But it's tough to bet against Tampa given their history.
I don't disagree with either of you guys. I mean, like I said, I can see this series going
Why didn't
either
you pick
way.
Tampa Bay?
Because I'm a Florida fan, you jackass.
That's not nice at all.
Well, neither is you guys picking Tampa Bay. So
that's fair. We did pick the, what is it, the Generals versus the Globetrotters or whatever, and we picked the Generals.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously I want the Panthers to win, but I mean, just based on, I've watched almost every single Panthers game this year. I haven't watched a ton of Lightning games because I do not like the Lightning. To your points about Anthony Duclair and Matt Dumba, those actually tie in pretty well to our viewer question, but I'm going to wait until we do that a little bit later in the show.
Fair enough.
But yeah, go Panthers, but I won't be surprised if Tampa kicks their ass because history is bound to repeat itself eventually.
Andrew, can you do me a favor and lean a little bit to your right?
To introduce the next series?
Yeah. I see a blanket and I see a jersey of the Bruins. The final matchup we're going to preview is the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Boston Bruins. Tons of history here. Original six rivalry. These are two teams that fucking hate each other. Every time they play each other is must-watch TV. It's going to be a little bit of a different field. This is the first time in this era of Leafs Bruins rivalry where there's no Bergeron, no Krejci, no Chara. So it's going to have quite a different feel to it. There's still Marchand, there's still Pasternak, DeBrusk. Go for it, Andrew. This is also your baby. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret that my wife and I are a huge Panthers fan, but first and foremost, I am always unapologetically a Boston Bruins fan. So it was last year's first round was really tough for me. I mean, it was a win-win ultimately for me, but I mean, Brian, you remember I was livid at the end of that series.
The way it happened, yeah.
It should have never went 7 games. Bruins were up 3-1, but I digress. This is a new season. I'm a Bruins fan, but I'm not from Massachusetts. And the one thing I'm already tired of seeing, and you see it every time the Bruins play the Leafs in the first round, all the Bruins fans talking shit. Yeah, we know Boston is Toronto's kryptonite in the playoffs and in the regular season. But all the Bruins fans are already just talking ridiculous amounts of shit, and the playoffs haven't even started. I'm like, bro, let's win a game first before we start running our mouths, because this is an entirely different Toronto team this year. And I am a diehard Boston Bruins fan, and I'm going to sit here and say to you that this first round series is going to go to the Leafs in 7.
Ben, what about you, man?
Dude, him and I are lockstep on a lot of these. Same thing. It sounds like I'm copying, but I'm going to say Leafs in 7. I think obviously the history is there, and I think we just, and the hockey community in general, just loves to rip on the Leafs and loves to rip on the fact that like they will never beat the Bruins. And I think that just like eventually like those things change, right? Eventually storylines change. And I just feel like this year, I think the firepower of the Leafs is enough that they can overpower the Bruins. And I'll credit Craig Button on this, because good points that these are not my points per se, but like, everyone thinks of the Bruins like as this incredibly stout defensive team. Their underlying defensive numbers are actually not great this year. Technically, they were worse than Toronto's. And then Toronto, everyone says defense is their problem, right? So it's like, if you wash, then, goaltending is going to go to the Bruins side, of course, but it's like Toronto's firepower, the argument there is like it's going to be a little too much for the Bruins goaltending to handle on its own, right? It's right. Like, and outside of Pasternak, of course, they got some guys that have been tremendous contributors this year, but like, you don't necessarily think of guys that stick out that are going to like take over games and pot goals in tight contests, right? And I just feel like, again, I got to mention the superstar Matthews. Like, dude scored 69 goals in his sleep this year. Nice. I feel like things went a little different. He could have had 80. It's like, I think that I'm not saying, again, past this round. I'm not commenting past this round, right? We're talking about this series. I just think Toronto's going to avenge whatever demons. Again, they already avenged somewhat, right? Last year. They won a playoff series, and then we stopped talking about that, but everyone still rips on them. I think they're going to be able to get out of the first round again. From there, that's a conversation for another day.
I'm sorry, Brian. I just real quick, I want to say to your point about
the Bruins are your team, man. Go as long as you need.
Well, one thing I want to say, this is actually about the Leafs, to your point about Matthews scoring 69 goals this year. I want to point out that including yesterday's game, or was it Wednesday night's game? I don't remember. Whenever the Leafs' last game was, including that game, Austin Matthews off shots hit the post 22 times this year. If half of those would have went in, he'd have been sniffing 80 goals this year. Right. So that's another thing to point out. And I can't remember where I saw that stat from. I think it might have been, was it 32 thoughts? It might have. I can't remember.
He only had like one empty net goal all season too. Like his goals were all goals. They weren't Kucherov, who had like 15 empty net goals this season.
Correct. And the other thing I want to point out too, and Brian and I have talked about this a lot, because even outside of this, we're always talking hockey all the time. it's a mental illness at this point. But this team this year, it's noticeable. It has been from day one. Is just not the same without the presence of Patrice Bergeron, and that goes a long way than a lot more people think. And you have to, as a Bruins fan, and I think it helps that I'm not from Massachusetts. But a lot of these Bruins fans are so jaded and can't just look at this from a third-party perspective and realize that there's a chemistry issue here. You know, that like I'm not knocking Brad Marchand. I think he's a great captain. He's an excellent player, and any team would be lucky to have him. He's gotten past his history of being a dirty rat, essentially, at least in my opinion. But there's just something that Patrice Bergeron had about him, and I think it was mostly just his personality. Everybody loved him, and that goes so far in a locker room and on the ice. It's just, I don't want to say it's been depressing watching the Bruins this year, but it just feels like that spark is missing. And I think ultimately, aside from that, the Ullmark-Swayman tandem this year is not what it was last year, and that's mostly in part due to Ullmark hasn't performed to the level that he did last year.
I feel like Swayman's been very good this
Swayman,
year.
well, and they've made it clear Swayman is the way they want to go moving forward. So I think on top of that, this is the last year we see Ullmark in a Bruins uniform. That's my opinion. And if he does start the season in Boston next year, he's gone at the trade deadline. I guarantee it.
That's fair. I mean, listen, you hit it right on the head. Swayman does seem like the guy there. I mean, the Bruins made it pretty clear they tried to move Ullmark at the deadline. So
Exactly.
I think this season they find one of those teams that's not on his no trade list and they ship him out.
Yeah, and I mean, you get a good return for him wherever you send him. So.
Oh yeah. I don't think there'll be an issue there. They'll get quality return, and hopefully they address the center depth issue. And to that point, I want to talk about this series in particular. Look. And I want to say it was, I don't know what show I was listening to. I've listened to so many talking head shows the last few days, getting myself prepped for the playoffs. I forgot who it was that hit it right on the head. Look at the forward combinations. I mean, with this being such an intense rivalry, there's going to be an emphasis on special teams. Ultimately, these teams hate each other. There's going to be some nastiness, which will result in power plays. The Bruins are really good on both ends of special teams. The Leafs kind of lackluster in that department, but if you look at depth, I mean, down the middle, the Leafs will eat the Bruins alive. I know the Leafs didn't beat them in the regular season this year, but again, it's a different style of hockey. Matthews, that top line, Matthews, Domi, Bertuzzi, if they keep that together, that's going to be tough. Domi and Bertuzzi are guys that are going to go into the corner, and they're going to get Matthews the puck, and we know what he does with the puck when he gets it. He lets it fly. And their second line, too, Tavares and Marner, and insert whoever you want to put in there on that line. Daily Faceoff has it as Matthew Nyes. Will that be the case? I'm not sure, but this team can really do some damage. They're one of the top offenses in the league for a reason. They've been excellent as a whole since the Morgan Riley suspension. They've really stepped it up. And I know they kind of stumbled into the finish line. They had a few kind of crappy games to end the season, but you could tell the focus was just on trying to get Matthews to 70. They kind of knew they were going to be a 3 seed anyways. I think for the longest time, they assumed they were playing Florida. I don't think they envisioned drawing the Bruins, but they've been, other than these last few games where they were trying to just feed Matthews the whole time, they've played some really good hockey. Ilya Samsonov has been really good for them the last month or so, and they've given him this last week off to get his mind reset. He's going to be rested, refreshed. His mind will be clear. I got the Leafs in 6 on this one, boys.
Man, we've been in agreement on a lot of this stuff.
I know.
Too.
I was just looking to see if we disagree with anything. I think we disagreed on the
Panthers and Lightning.
Panthers and Lightning, Vancouver and Nashville. I think you guys both took Nashville.
Right.
Did anybody take Dallas?
I took Dallas in 7.
You took Dallas? Okay.
I took Vegas.
Yeah.
Who took Colorado? Anybody?
I did in one of my brackets, but not on the one I'm using for this show. No.
Okay. All right. So
like I said, I always do like anywhere between 5 and 10 brackets just because I'm trying to win the damn challenge, which has never happened. But
I was gonna say he wants that $1 million grand prize. Which
no, dude, I just want to say I was right. I mean, obviously I want the money, but I like being right.
That's fair. So again, just a really quick touch on the Leafs Bruins before we move on. In the same light that I think Toronto has this series pretty well in their favor. Every team's got their boogeyman. and
Toronto's is Boston.
You know, they may be due to finally beat them, but who's to say it's this year? You know, we could have a conversation in 2 weeks and say, what the hell happened to the Leafs?
How did the Bruins sweep the Leafs?
Listen, if the
go
Leafs
ahead.
lose, this is gonna be a fun offseason.
Oh, dude. And obviously I want that to happen. And then they're really never gonna live it down. But one thing, no matter who wins this series, one thing, there's a 100% chance this happens regardless of who wins, and that is after the series is over, Tyler Bertuzzi's going to go in the parking lot and slash everybody's tires because that dude looks like an absolute criminal.
Yeah, he's looking rough these days. He looks like he hasn't slept since last season.
Yeah, he looks rough.
Slash everyone's tires.
He looks like a felon, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it wasn't it's just this season. I don't know what happened.
Oh man. So we'll see. That'll be I'm most looking forward to the Bruins and Leafs series. I think the Battle of Florida will be a good series. Other than that, I'm really excited though to see Colorado Winnipeg. What about Ben? What are you liking for your most anticipated series? What are you most looking forward to watching?
Yeah, good question. I'm gonna agree with you there. I think like I kind of opened with, I think Jets and Colorado in my mind is like that series that, again, when people do knock the current playoff format, like that's kind of a good example. It's like these are two top dog teams that are a majority of the year. Yeah, that's just gonna, I feel like, be like fast, good playoff
That's
hockey.
gonna be a good
Yeah,
one.
Absolutely.
It's like you just, even though I picked the Jets to win, and I could say this for a lot of the series, like Brian, I think you just said, it's like, but I wouldn't be surprised if, right? Like you could say that about like maybe 6 of the 8 series, I think.
Yeah.
Like a lot of these are razor thin margins, definitely.
Yeah, like we're making our picks here, but it's like that's one of the great things that speaks to just the NHL parity right now and this game in general. It's like I wouldn't sit here and be surprised unless like Washington beat the Rangers, right?
Right.
Like really, almost I could say on any other series, you know, maybe Canes Islanders as the second, but like anything else, man, could swing kind of either way.
What about you, Andrew?
I also like the Winnipeg, Colorado. So that's the one I'm looking forward to the most. And I know some people are probably like, what about the Bruins series? What about the Panthers series? Look, these series
are going to stress
before.
you the fuck out, aren't they?
Yeah.
Invested.
Yeah. I mean, I'm personally invested in those series. However, we've had the same series before. You know what you're going to get out of both of those series. So, yeah, I'm excited. Hell yeah, dude. It's playoff hockey. Both my teams are in it. The downside to that is both of my teams could be eliminated in the first round.
Say neither of mine are, so and
yeah,
I know yours isn't.
Well,
so
I would say I got Columbus jersey back there. I like the Blue Jackets. Great place to watch a hockey game, I'll tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
But no, definitely the Winnipeg Colorado series. I think like you said, it's razor thin margins, man. And I know I'm picking Winnipeg, but you know what Colorado can do offensively. And I mean, to counter that, Winnipeg has Connor Hellebuck, obviously, but I'm going to be fully invested in that series. I'm most excited to watch that one. Obviously, I'm going to watch and support my teams, but that is the biggest series for me right now is Colorado Winnipeg.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I'm most looking forward to Bruins Leafs because I am a sucker for old timey stuff, old time hockey. I love the original 6 rivalry. So I think Mitch Marner used the phrase at the beginning of the season, piss and vinegar. I kind of like that style of fuck you hockey that they're gonna play against each other. I am really a big fan of that. So
that's gonna be a physical series.
To your guys' point, though, the Jets and the Avalanche, I think this is the first time they are meeting in the playoffs, so that is kind of cool. It'll definitely be a fun one to watch, but for me, I got to go with Bruins and Leafs, man. That's going to be a hell of a series.
It's a classic. But
Two teams that just genuinely hate each other.
And I will be the first to tell you right now, as a Boston Bruins fan, I absolutely despise the Toronto Maple Leafs. And the fans, not personally, just as fans. I don't have anything against them as people, just as fans.
Yeah, your rivals, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, but that's one of my favorite things about being a Bruins fan is the rivalry with Toronto.
I can't
And
wait till the Habs are good again. I want to see Bruins and Canadians
dude,
again.
Yeah.
I do miss that, but the Habs have just been so irrelevant the last several years that it hasn't
I don't
mattered.
think that's going to last too much longer, man. Some of their young guys are really turning up the heat there. I think they're maybe a year or two away from really starting to make some noise again.
Isn't it funny though that we say that, but they were in the Cup final in like what 2020?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
but they should have.
it
I
was
know.
I mean,
I
they were
know.
they were in 25th place in the NHL standings. That was such a goofy playoff.
Yeah. And then
yeah.
they were in the Stanley Cup
And then
final
they were
against
what,
the team in the
dead
same
last or
conference.
something next
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
They
A
were
few months later, they were terrible.
Yeah, they fell off a cliff. Well,
Yeah.
and that's the thing that kills me is that they went to the Stanley Cup final, but as you said, they played a team that was in their own division, not even just the same division. I'm like,
yeah.
so it's a little goofy, but you know what?
The
It is what
NHL
it
dropped
is.
the ball there on that one. I mean, that wasn't the team's fault.
It wasn't the team's fault. Also, that run though, Carey Price was just so good. The team was garbage, but
Yeah.
Carey Price was healthy. And if you haven't been watching hockey for more than a few years, you missed out on prime Carey Price. He was just such a phenomenal goaltender when he was healthy.
You could argue
that was his last stand, and it was such an incredible run for him. I really kind of wish the Habs would have won that cup with him to kind of pay homage to him for icing such shitty teams in front of him all those years. He just had an unreal run.
He's a guy that you wish you could have seen him. I mean, I never want the Habs to win a cup, but Carey Price is a guy I want to see I would have liked to have seen win a cup just because, I mean, for the longest time, he was one of, if not the most feared goaltender in the league.
He won MVP as a goalie. I mean, what more can you say about the guy? It's just an unreal goalie, a great person off the ice. It just sucks, injuries fuck up what could be really great stories all the time. So yeah, but I don't want to get too sidetracked. This is a playoff show. I don't want to get stuck on the Canadians too much. Not for a couple more years, I'm thinking, with the Habs. Let's before we move to our next section, let's take a moment to recognize our sponsors. And Ben, you actually have a story about one of our sponsors. So
I do.
Andrew, why don't you go ahead and mention Xenopucks here real quick?
All right. Like we said, Ben does have a story for this. But as always, as everybody knows, Fresh Ice is brought to you by Xenopucks, and you can't read that, so I don't know why I'm holding it up to the camera, but
hold it closer now.
Well, part of it's the lighting.
He's like, here, it's brought to you by Xenopucks.
Yeah. So Xenopucks, they make a high quality, top tier off ice training puck for all those times you want to practice your stick handling or your shot, whatever it might be, but you can't always get the ice time. These pucks are designed to glide on virtually any off-ice surface, whether it's hardwood, tile, carpet, asphalt, concrete, turf, dirt. I've heard of people using it on a baseball diamond. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but hey, man, whatever floats your boat. It is the same size and regulation weight as a hockey puck, a real hockey puck. It is not made of rubber. Do not recommend that you use this for a game, but it does work. And to speak to that, I'm going to let Ben tell his Xenopuck story.
Yeah, so the guys at Xenopuck were kind enough to send me one after, I was on the last episode. And, I'm a new dad. I got a lot going on right now. Just finishing up coaching a high school season. So haven't had the chance to like go out on my, my blades and rip around and like really give it its due test. But the other day I was heading out to go somewhere. I can't even remember, but I had my kid in the stroller and I was taking some stuff down to the car. I'm like, oh, I got to put the Xenopuck in my car because it's been like sitting on my desk, like just looking cool, but it's like, I want to use it. Right. So I had a bunch of stuff in my hands. Like I got the kid in the stroller, I got the Xenopuck, and with some other things, I was going to throw it in my Jeep. And I get down to the parking garage because I live in an apartment, and like, I'm carrying stuff like in all my arms, like it falls out, right, and onto the ground. And like normally, like you think you drop a puck, it like flips on its end and rolls, and it's just like shitty and awkward. This thing, like it fell and just like made this nice little glide, like on the floor in the garage. It's just like a asphalt whatever parking garage, and I was just like, oh, cool, because like, I wasn't even thinking about it, right? I was just holding it with some other shit. And then like we were up by the car, so I told my kid, he's 1 year old, right? So it's on like, dude, just chill for a second. So I just like parked the stroller.
Be cool, man.
Yeah, I was like, be cool. I got to do something. So Of course, you never leave home without your sticks. I got 2 sticks in the car always. So I flipped open the trunk and I just like real quick, I just like handled it a little bit because I was like, it like reminded me, and I was like, dude, this is tight. So I just played in the parking garage a little bit. My kid was sitting in the stroller, like watching me. I was like, see, this is how you do it. So I still have to give them their full due and go out and rip around the neighborhood. But my 15-second review in the parking garage, it's 5 stars.
Yeah, they make great stuff over there. And if you haven't checked them out already, you should head over to xenopucks.com. Check out their merch selection. It's pretty solid. You've seen me wear it on the show. I've got a shirt and a beanie and everything. They got good stuff over there. Make sure if you are a hockey player, or even if you're not, get yourself one of these. Check them out and make sure you follow them over on Instagram at Xenopucks.
That's right. And you mentioned practicing off ice, Ben. We have since picked up a new sponsor since you were last on, the Hockey Wraparound. They offer a variety of products. They have their merchandise line. They have equipment drying racks. They sell their own tape. Their big product is a blade wraparound. It goes from the heel of your stick all the way, wraps around the toe, and goes just over the top of the toe. The idea, of course, is to protect the blade of your sticks and the tape on it from getting all screwed up off the ice. It's a perfectly paired product with a Xenopuck. They, from my understanding, Andrew told me they've done work together. And so it's a perfect match. Go to hockeywraparound.com/fresh-ice. Use the code FreshIcePod, and that'll get you 15% off your order. But for you, Ben, I think it'd be worth trying to pair them together because, I mean, if you're going to be practicing off ice, if you got the blades out and you're going down the street, you know, why would you want to ruin a perfect tape job after all?
Yeah, totally. I could have used that last night actually in my men's game. I broke my stick off, and then I had a backup stick that I've been using to like play catch with my dog. It looks terrible. Like all the guys are making fun of me. I had a single strip of tape on the front of the blade. Like it was laughable. So like I come out from they blow a whistle. I come out on the ice and like I could have used the wraparound right there because it sounds like you can apply it like boom, right?
Yeah,
and you got a respectable tape job just like that.
Well, it's like a
it's a protective layer. So it's more meant for use on asphalt, concrete, that kind of thing. It's so that way you're not hacking up the bottom of your blade and ripping the tape wide open.
Oh yeah, nice.
So that's more the concept of it. I mean, I'm sure it could work fine on ice, but yeah, it's a perfect match for trying, especially if you're working on stick handling. It's going to give you, it's again, you're going to not scrape up these, you know, hundreds of dollars these hockey sticks cost for good ones. You're not going to ruin that. So, you know, a good, an investment that's under $50 can save you hundreds of dollars.
Yeah. Well, and you know, one thing that I'm not going to lie, I wasn't paying attention. So I don't know if Brian pointed it out because my cat was here being an asshole. I don't know. So Wraparound also does, beside from merch, they have other things too. Like they do hockey drying rack for your equipment.
I opened.
Did you say that? Did you? Yes. Oh, dude, I'm sorry. This little prick was whining up a storm. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
You guys didn't hear him, did you? Because he was sitting here whining.
I thought I heard him a couple times at the beginning of the show, but I was like, that's all right. We can have 2 guests.
All right. Well, just in case anybody heard him, we have a cat. He's an asshole. He just ran downstairs, but his name is Tuca. And if you don't know why he's named Tuca,
no relation to the
no relation to the goaltender, other than that's who I named him after. So
although he's big enough to stop a hockey puck, so
he's a big cat, man. But you know, it was one of those situations where I was never a cat person. I'm like, I don't want a cat, and then we got the cat, and now he's my buddy.
Now you're a cat person.
Yeah, I won't go that far, but I like my cat. So
fair enough.
Yeah, no, I tell you right now, if we had a dog in this house with that cat, it'd be a nightmare. But I digress. So yeah, sponsors, yay.
All right. So yes, thanks to both of them for again being so willing to be a part of this chaos with us. So we always appreciate them and the fantastic products they offer. The sport's so expensive, and they're just trying to offer people a way to enjoy it a little more.
Yeah, that's
so. Sport. Now, Andrew, you did mention we had a question, and since Ben's on, it's perfect time to answer a question or 2.
Yes, sir. Well, we won't be answering 2 because there's only 1. So
that's okay, because I have one for both of you guys that we can all answer together.
All right,
so it's
cool.
Perfect.
Dude, I just gotta say, dude, I've been so excited for this show all damn week. Like,
Yeah.
the last Ben, before I go into this question, I need to point out, man, I've had, without exaggeration, probably 15 different people say, hey, either when are you gonna have Ben back on the show, or you guys need to fucking get Ben back on the show.
Yep.
I mean, that was I looked it up before we started. That was our most downloaded episode by a country mile.
Hell yeah.
So I mean, I got like good reviews. Like, people were saying, I had one guy tell me, he goes, dude, it was like listening to three friends sit around a campfire and talk about hockey. It just flowed, and I'm like, yeah, it was a good show. And I mean, we were so new to the podcast game. We still are, but I mean,
Which episode was that again?
That was
our fifth episode.
Fifth? Okay.
We are on, this will be the
16th, I believe.
This is the 16th episode. And we've since gone to 2 episodes a week now. So
yep.
Yeah. So with that being said, one, thank you for that. And it's always cool having you on here, because it's just nice to sit down with the boys and talk hockey.
Yep.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we'll certainly have you on in the future, as it seems our listeners like you more than they like us. So
Oh,
but seriously,
fair.
it is a joy having you on. Your mind for the game is just it's really good. You have, you're well aware of what goes on in the league, and it's great to talk hockey with a third person that also gets the game and likes it so much. So it really is fun to have you.
Absolutely. Yeah, this has been great, guys. Friday night, I can't think of anything I'd rather be. If I wasn't on the podcast, put it this way, I'd be hunkered down under a blanket on my laptop. I'd be like doing my brackets. I'd be ranking. I'd be deep into this just in my head, and it's always funner to get it out with somebody, right? And get some different viewpoints.
No, man, like Brian said, I mean, your insight on everything is just unmatched. So it's always fun. And it makes us look like doofuses, and I'm okay with that. So
gotta stay humble, right?
Oh my God.
So
here's the question that I've been trying to pull up for the last 2 minutes.
He was actually delaying this whole time.
Yeah, I was stalling. So this question comes to us from Danny Gwynn in Florida, and he purposely signed his name with that. So I'm assuming that meant it was okay for me to say on the show. If not, too bad.
His home address is.
Yeah, he gave me his social security number and his bank card information.
Yeah. What a nice guy. We do have the best listeners after
all. Thanks, man.
What does Danny Gwynn have to say?
Danny Gwynn said, this year's trade deadline was one of the biggest I've seen in a while. With that being said, what trades will have the biggest impact in the playoffs? I personally think Tampa's Anthony Duclair and Matt Dumba, especially if Mikhail Sergachev is able to come back and join Dumba on defense. I'm also biased. Go Bolts. Thanks, guys. Love the show. Danny Gwynn.
Ben, what do you think?
Well, Danny's a smart guy. He kind of seconded my point from earlier. The Duke, man, like,
yeah,
if like you kind of think about like if teams went on a run, like who could be that like guy, that X factor. Again, I could see the Duke being that guy, kind of like Evander Kane a few years ago, who just like, scores 12 goals in 12 games or something. Like I could see that for them. That's a great one. If I'm trying to be, I'm going to go a little different route on this. And I'm going to say this in more of like a lucky gem kind of way. Look at, you guys aren't going to expect this. Look at Corey Perry. And here's what I mean. How many years was that dude in the final on different teams? Look at him on Edmonton now.
Yeah.
Just always being that son of a bitch who's like just always in the thick of everything, keeps getting older, somehow is effective. I could see him scoring like 10 goals this year and going to the final with Edmonton.
Yeah.
And correct me if was that even, I might be off track here. Was that even a deadline pickup?
Corey Perry?
Or did they have him the whole year?
They had him where he started with Chicago. I don't remember if it was this year or last year, but he started with
Chicago, and then that
whole thing went down.
Right.
They terminated his contract, and Edmonton picked him up. To your point, Corey Perry has been to the Stanley Cup final 4 times. He won it in 2007 with Anaheim, but has been back plenty of times. He is a playoff performer for sure.
Right. So one more I'd throw in there, like I mentioned the guy's name earlier. Jake Gensel has been a beast for Carolina. I think he had like 16, 17 points since the his acquisition. A lot of people think the Canes are going to go all the way or pretty damn near. So I'd say that's a pickup again that team desperately needed, somebody with some pizzazz and clutch. So yeah, I'd throw Getzel in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. Gensel 77 points this year in 67 games overall. To the point, I think Danny kind of hit it right on the nose. First of all, Duclair's been great for Tampa Bay since he's been there. He's on the top line. He's playing with Point and Kucherov. So if that screams talent right there that he can keep up with those guys. He's a very good player. I think again he hit it right on with Dumba. He comes in. He's not Mikhail Sergachev, but he's a guy with playoff experience. He can play a physical game. He's more of a shutdown defender than anything. He's got a good shot, but he plays a different role than Sergachev, but he's a veteran presence that's filled in great there. But I would have to say the pickup of Gensel and Kuznetsov for Carolina, they have reaped the rewards on that one. They have, I mean, it's from what it sounds like. Andrew was going to say the same exact thing, but
anything original to say over there?
Yeah, no shit. No shit, dude.
But I mean, Carolina has just been a wagon since the trade deadline. I mean, they get Freddie Anderson back. They get two guys that can shoot the lights out. I think Danny is well within his right saying that Tampa hit it right on the head because they did. They absolutely did. I got to give the edge to Carolina, man. They absolutely got to haul this deadline, and they got their number one goalie back. Andrew, how you doing?
What's the point?
Yeah, what's the point?
Fuck.
Ruined his whole day.
Yeah. First thing I got to say to you guys before I go into my point is I have a confession, and that is I actually know this guy very well. I didn't know he was going to email the show. That caught me off guard.
I thought that name sounded familiar. Okay.
I worked with him when I lived in Florida, and he is a very good friend of mine. He's a real solid dude. I had no idea he was going to email the show. So the fact that he did that is pretty cool. And he's been listening since the very first episode. Real good dude, real knowledgeable hockey guy. His only downfall is that he's a Tampa Bay Lightning fan, but I try not to hold that against him. But Danny, I know you're going to be listening to this.
Bro, you like the Bruins.
Bro, you want to go down this road right now?
No, I just want to get a light of fire under your ass. That's all. Keep going.
Danny, I know you're listening to this, when it comes out, you're listening to this show. So thanks for being here since day one, man. And most importantly, thanks for your friendship and thanks for the question. That means a lot. And it was a nice surprise to see your name pop up in the email. So with that being said, I'm pretty much about to just repeat verbatim what Brian just said. I mean,
it doesn't make your point any less wrong, though. Say what you're going to say.
Well, I was going to say Carolina is definitely, I think, as far as teams in the playoff right now, won the trade deadline with the pickup of Gensel and Kuznetsov. I think Kuznetsov is here long term for Carolina. Gensel, I think, is done with not done for good. I just mean done with Carolina once the playoffs are over. And I really don't think there's anybody out there who's going to argue that. And if you do, you're kind of dumb. But I think they have really reaped the rewards from this. Kuznetsov has just been such a good fit there. And I think for Jake Gensel, it's better for him morale-wise, coming from a Pittsburgh team that nobody thought was even going to have a chance at making the playoffs. So I think it's a good fit for him anyway. And if everybody stays healthy, primarily besides Anderson, but Kuznetsov and Gensel, Carolina is going to make a deep run, man. I'm nervous about it. I mean, yeah, I've seen them go to the Eastern Conference Final, play both my teams, and I always say, the Eastern Conference Final, the Carolina is the first round of Toronto. But I don't know, man. Those are two good weapons to have on a Carolina team that's already good anyway. So I think Carolina comes away with this as far as trade deadline acquisitions.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I think Tampa Bay still made a killing at the deadline for sure.
Oh hell yeah! I mean, Duclair.
Your point about Kuznetsov staying in Carolina, I think there's some truth to that, given what he's gone through. He's really rebounded well in Carolina. He seems to be liked by the fans. He's playing very well. For Guentzel, he is a UFA at the end of the season. There's a lot of talk, does he want to go back to Pittsburgh? He's from Minnesota. He's got very close friends and family. He spends his summers in Minnesota training.
Here comes the biased view.
That's not what I was going to say. Okay.
Right.
Anywho, I'm just saying he's got options. There's places he probably would like to go. He may want to go home and play in Minnesota. He might want to go back to Pittsburgh and play with Sid. He could also get a shit ton of money on the free agent market. He could re-sign in Carolina for a shit ton of money. He's got options, but I think you're right in saying that of the two, I think Kuznetsov is probably going to stay there. I think Guentzel goes. I think unless they win the cup, then he might try and take a discount and stay and see if he can win another. But if Carolina wins the cup this year, that'll be his third. Maybe he won't feel the pressure to. Who knows? But if wherever he goes, he can command a pretty good amount of money, and I think he'll get it wherever it is.
Well, I think it would be absolutely be worth his time to test free agency just to see what he can dip into. I 100% thought you were going to be like, oh yeah, maybe he tries to go to Minnesota, and I was like, oh
no. I heard a couple months ago that they should try and go after him. I'm like, I think they should. He's a great player. How the fuck can they afford that? They can't. So that's the big obstacle there. Like I said, I know he trains there, but a lot of guys train up there too. There's a lot of guys like to go golfing and fishing, and there's a ton of that in Minnesota. So it doesn't mean these guys want to play there. It's just like all these guys that are from Toronto. Okay, it doesn't mean they want to play for the Leafs, even though a lot of Leafs Nation seems to think everybody wants to play there. But yeah, no, I'm just saying he's gonna have options. He's got reasons to go to specific places. He's got a reason to go back to Pittsburgh. He's got a reason to come home. He's got a reason to stay in Carolina. He's got options, and which is why I think he will ultimately move, because he's just got so many choices. The odds of him staying in Carolina just seem low to me.
Before we move on real quick, I just want to point out, we mention it all the time. If you have a question that you want us to read on the show, if you're watching on YouTube, you can leave it in the comment section. If not,
like and subscribe.
Yeah, well, always like and subscribe. But if you want us to read off your question and you're not watching on YouTube, you can email the show. The email address is contact@freshicehockeypodcast.com, and I filter through them every week. I check it every single day. So don't be shy. Don't be nervous. If anyone should be nervous, it's us. So
I do have a question for both of you guys, and it does pertain to the playoffs. We gave our first round predictions. We'll be here all night if we go through each individual round and do hypotheticals. So to kind of avoid that, I would like to know, who do you guys have in the Stanley Cup final, and who do you have winning the Stanley Cup?
The Kings and the Capitals. No, I'm just kidding.
Andrew, why don't, since your thunder has been stolen so many times today, and there have been so many wrongs done against you that I feel like it's time to undo them. Why don't you give us your picks first?
All right. So as it sits right now, and this is, like I said, I've done multiple brackets, and there's only one I'm using. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Computer's being weird. There's only one bracket I'm using for the show. As it sits right now, my Stanley Cup final matchup is the Winnipeg Jets and the Florida Panthers. And I have the Florida Panthers taking it all.
Ben, what do you got,
mostly just for redemption, but
he wants that one bad. He wants a healthy
Big
Panthers
time.
team to have a fair shot. I get it.
I also have the Winnipeg Jets.
Oh, nice.
I
do it.
I'm just feeling it, man. I think the hardest thing I had when I was doing my bracket was I had an all Canada Western final. I had Edmonton playing Winnipeg, and I went back and forth because it's just like, you feel like McJesus, there's got to be his time eventually, but yeah. I couldn't get there. I'm just looking at the whole team. I'm looking at depth. Something to me just screams playoffs. And again, like Hellebuck, like we're in a day and age with NHL goaltending where like every team's got 4 goaltenders. And some of the teams that have 2, you're still not sure who's like the guy. Hellebuck's
Right.
just like the guy.
Yeah.
And most teams just like don't have that. They got the guy, and I think they're going to get there, and I think they're going to be. I think they're going to play the Rangers, and I think they're going to take the Rangers over. And I don't know. Are you putting us on the spot for games, or is that too detailed?
I won't put you on the spot for games, but I've been trying not to grin this whole time. Ben, is your Eastern Conference final? Is it Tampa versus New York?
No, it's actually not. It's Carolina and New York.
That couldn't be a conference final matchup.
You're right. It's oh shit, yeah, it is. It is Tampa.
It is.
Yeah,
Ben and I have the exact
I was thinking second. That's going to be a awesome second round if that's the way it goes. But
no worries. I've been grinning this whole time. You and I have the same Final Four in the same Stanley Cup final matchup. I have Edmonton and Winnipeg out west, New York and Tampa out east. I have the final New York Rangers against the Jets. The only difference is I have the Rangers winning it all. Listen, these are two really insane teams. The Jets' biggest strength is their goaltending. They're a really deep team in general. Their biggest strength is the goaltending, but the other side of that is the Rangers, and you and I both have said this is probably the most complete team in the league. They have an excellent goalie. I mean, Igor is not Connor Hellebuck, but he's probably a top 3 goalie in the league, definitely top 5.
Hell yeah.
So
he's nothing to sneeze at.
No, not at all. He's a very good goalie, and because the Rangers are so lethal, that's why I took them. I thought it was hilarious that we so none of this was planned. We didn't talk before this, so by chance we all had the Jets in the final. Ben, I cannot believe we have the same Final Four in our bracket. And
I know I literally haven't talked to you since the recording of episode 5. So yeah.
That's
I should point out Ben and I have talked since the last show, but but nothing about this.
Yeah. So it's just the whole time Ben was talking, I was just trying not to laugh because I'm like, son of a bitch, I think we got the same exact bracket here.
This show could look really good if Winnipeg does some damage or Rangers. This show could look really good.
I'm just saying, if you guys end up being right, this show better blow the hell up. Like this better go viral, man.
No kidding, dude. No kidding.
I mean, it better blow up YouTube.
Just for the hell of it here, the Hellebuck of it.
The Hellebuck, yeah.
Nice. For what it's worth, though, yeah, we might have to. Our brackets certainly are. For what it's worth here, Igor Shesterkin tied for 3rd in wins this year. Hellebuck had 2nd. They were both behind Georgiev, who led the league. Connor Hellebuck, 4th in goals against average, 2nd in save percentage. Igor tied for 10th in save percentage. He had a 913, but he had such a slow start. It kind of makes sense. 11th in goals against with a 258. Again, he had such a slow start to the year. His numbers since that poor start have just been really good. So these are two very evenly matched goalies. I would love to see this as the Stanley Cup final because I do think conference for conference, I know I'll get a lot of pushback from Dallas fans and say they're a more complete team. My argument to that is that the consistency from the Jets and from Connor Hellebuck is just a little bit better. I don't think Dallas is far away. I think there may be another year or so from winning it all. I just don't think I can see them winning it this year. But Ben, I really hope we're both right, because after making my bracket, I was like, man, this would be a killer final if we got this.
Yeah, and something I think that I kind of gravitate towards with the Jets is like they've had some turmoil there as far as just like you hear things about like maybe culture in the past couple of years, and then the thing with Wheeler, and then he leaves, gets the captaincy stripped from him. They name a guy captain, and like I can't think of many teams that have this case. They name a guy captain who's a 3rd line player in Adam Lowry, but everyone that you ever hear interviewed has always said like he's a heart and soul player. I think they have like this old school vibe to them where they have this guy that's not your traditional superstar wearing the C and really leading the team. And I think that the culture change from losing Dubois, who's a cancer, I think the deal they made in the off season, shipping him out, and it was all doom and gloom, and they didn't know what was going to happen with Hellebuck. They didn't know what was going to happen with Scheifele. Those guys re-signed. They put the C on a guy that literally is the heart and soul of the team, which should wear the letter. And you could just feel like they're all year, like this team is just like bonded and melded in a way that just I don't know. It feels like there's some magic there or something.
Definitely. And I have, since this show's inception, I have been singing praises of the Jets for getting rid of Dubois, but the play of Velarde and Iafallo, they've just been excellent. I mean, they have fit right into that team. They're both very good players anyways. I mean, they were great in LA, but they have just gelled perfectly with the Jets. Scheifele's had a really good year. He led the team in scoring. I think you hit it right on, going from Blake Wheeler to Adam Lowry as captain. I know Blake Wheeler goes to New York and has the injury, but Lowry is when you think of the Jets and the kind of game they play, he's the kind of guy, a tight checking kind of player, and the Jets play that tight checking hockey. They don't blow you away with their speed. They don't have any elite scoring. I mean, their highest score, 72 points for the season. They just chip away at you and lock it down on defense. And that's the kind of game Adam Lowry's played his whole career. He's tough as hell to play against. He's never going to score, 40 goals or anything, but everything has gone right for the Jets this year. And that's why, while normally it seems like everyone's like, oh, Gary doesn't want a Canadian team to win the cup. Well, you can make a case that the Jets have something to say about that.
Absolutely. And I want to point out too, back to Dubois, getting rid of him was the best thing that they could have done for that team.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's gone exactly as planned in LA.
I was going to say it's showing in LA. And we talked about that very early on when we started this show. About the kind of locker room presence he had or doesn't have, I should say. So I think that excellent move on their part. I like your guys' choices, honestly. I mean, we're all allowed to have different picks. I think it's hilarious you guys have the same final four.
Yeah, dude, I was just gonna say I'm still fucking giggling about that over here.
That's incredible, but I really like that. That'll be I would love to watch that matchup, honestly. Obviously, it doesn't include any of my teams. And I know I'm just preaching to the choir because both of your guys' teams, no offense, aren't even in it. But
you're right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not talking shit. I'm just saying, but
that's the real reason I didn't pick any of your teams is out of spite.
Fair enough. But I think that'd be a great matchup. And the best part about it is that just the sole fact that a Canadian team would have a shot at winning the Stanley Cup would get under Gary Bettman's skin, and I'm all for that.
I feel like the Jets are probably the most likable Canadian team too. That is a badass fan base they got, man. They go hard, and I know was issues this year with the attendance, and but the Canadian dollar isn't in a great spot right now, and times are tough up there, and when
you're snowed in too, like
you get it's Winnipeg.
So
I just be there. There's a lot of conditions. It has nothing to do with the quality of the fan base. We've seen that building definitely loud in the playoffs. I wouldn't worry about the health and the long-term future of the Jets there. And I think it would be really cool to see them make a run.
Oh yeah. And I mean, my favorite thing about Jets playoff hockey is the whiteout. I mean,
that's cool.
I love seeing that. So it'll be fun. We got 4 teams in the playoffs this year that have never won a cup. So I mean, the opportunities there for us to see somebody new. Yeah.
Let's see.
Nashville Panthers, Winnipeg, Vancouver.
There's a couple. Let's see. Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, you're right.
I know.
Unless you count the Leafs because they haven't won one since there was only 6 teams in the league.
Yeah.
Also, we completely glossed over this in the Leafs Bruins section, and I wanted to make a point of it because I thought it was funny. The Leafs have not beat the Bruins in a playoff series since 1959, so it's been a little while.
Oh yeah, keep on rolling, baby.
But I don't know. These playoffs are gonna kick ass. There's really no way to mask it. I think this is like this is like Christmas for hockey. First round of the playoffs is every hockey fan's favorite time of the year. If you have a team in it, it's hectic as hell. If you're like me and Ben, you don't really have a dog in the fight. It's just turn on whatever game looks fun and enjoy it. And just it's so fucking fun. The analysts say it all the time. We as fans say it, but hockey truly has the best playoffs of any sport. They're by far the most grueling physically. The quality of the game is great. The fans are great. there's nothing bad about it except the refs. It just, I mean, everything about it is just perfect. So I mean, to all the fans, whether your team's in or not, just enjoy not only these next 2 weeks, but the next 2 months, man. This is just the best time of the year.
Yeah, especially given the regular season we just got done having, which was
Oh my God,
absolutely insane. I can't even fathom how these playoffs are going to go. I haven't been this jacked up for the playoffs ever, I don't think. So
Yeah.
Dude, I'm ready to run through a wall. I'm so excited.
I think this is a good year to not have a dog in the fight, because it's like, well, I don't got to worry about being let down. I'm just going to watch some great fucking hockey.
And as far as playoffs go, granted it's not AHL or NHL, but in the AHL, I got to shout out the Cleveland Monsters. They've got their full team back now, mostly. They're gearing up to make what I hope to be a deep playoff run, especially if you saw what the price of playoff tickets were for the entirety of the playoffs. So
I did not. What were they? I'm curious.
So I think for our seats specifically, for the entirety of the playoffs, that's assuming they go all the way
right
to the cup final. It was like $1,300 for our two.
I'd say that's package.
What's that, Brian?
I'm having issues.
All right.
Can you even get into one Leafs game for $1,300?
Probably not.
I
don't think so.
Well, and that's one thing, because my wife and her friend are going to Toronto in November to see Taylor Swift. And the only reason I'm thinking about tagging along is just so I can go to a Leafs game if they're home during that time.
Yeah.
But I'm like, that's going to be a lot of money to go to a Leafs game.
Right.
So I don't know, but I'm trying to get to every NHL arena I can.
Well, that's as close as Brian and I are going to sniff to the Jackets having postseason success as their prospect pool. Hopefully, doing some damage here in Cleveland.
I was going to say, Monsters fans got to be pretty happy. The playoffs are starting, and the Jackets can't recall half the fucking team. So there you go.
Well, they just sent everybody back down. We're just waiting on Ben-geance and Carson Meyer because they're both injured, so they're not eligible to be sent back down yet. They have to clear their injury before they can be sent back down. But enough. I mean, we got Jet Greaves and Malcolm Subban back. Yippee about Malcolm. But I mean, Jet Greaves. What's up?
I just before I forget about it, you guys were talking about playoff ticket prices, and that's when, of course, my video quality decided to take a shit. Somebody on Twitter post or X, whatever the fuck you want to call it, posted a picture of, it was Ticketmaster or StubHub, whatever it was, for a New York Rangers home game at Madison Square Garden. Nosebleed seat, like fourth row from the back, was like $428.
Dude, I
for
absolutely
one seat. I mean,
for regular season or for a playoff ticket?
For the first home game.
Okay,
$428, and you're four rows from the back. And listen, I know it's MSG, but Jesus Christ! And to your point, Ben, I'm sure. I don't think you can get in the door for a Leafs game for under 1,000 Canadian.
Right.
Oh man. Well, maybe I'm gonna run that one by my wife before I do it. Then.
Well, no, I mean a Leafs playoff game. You can get into a Leafs playoff game for well under that, I'm sure, or at least regular season game. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Playoffs, I doubt it. I doubt it. I mean, the suites are, the good seats and the suites are probably 5-digit numbers for those. So
it just blows my mind that, I mean, I understand there's people who have infinite amounts of money, but it still blows my mind that people pay $10,000 a ticket for seats. For
and the Leafs have so many corporate sponsors. A lot of times the corporate, they have sponsors, so they'll get a lot of people in for free, and that's how they fill out those seats. And but I don't, for the ones that don't, I'm like, man, you're really spending a shit ton of money on a game. Now, if it's the finals, I guess I get it. If it's a finals and a chance to clinch the Stanley Cup, that I get, because that's once in a lifetime. But yeah, generally speaking, paying $3,000 for round 1, game 2 is absurd.
I would have to agree with you wholeheartedly.
Okay, and we're back. So sorry for the hard pause there. Andrew had to make a pit stop. So he's refreshed now. I figured all those beers were eventually going to win the battle.
They sure did.
Do you feel better?
Feel great, man.
Boy, the show gets long and we forget how to behave.
I think your internet forgot how to work during that
It
during
did.
that intermission. Yeah.
Let's see here. So no, we're back now. My internet is just not cooperating, but just okay because we've pretty well reached the end of the show. So before we go, Andrew's got a couple things to say, but Ben, I just want to personally thank you for coming on and shooting the shit with us. Andrew, go ahead.
Before I give my spiel, I did this last time. I want to give Ben a chance to shout out what he does outside of here. So go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm a online trainer and health coach for a living, and I was led to fitness through hockey. Hockey's always been kind of my first passion and kind of what brought me to this world. So I do totally remote health coaching and training online. benpolacofitness.com and Instagram /Ben first and last name. So yeah, I love working with hockey fans because, obviously like today I had a call with a client. We talked about the playoffs for 45 minutes, and then we touched on what we should touch on for like the last 5 minutes. So we have fun, but yeah, thanks for the piece there.
Yeah, man. No, like I said, we're just grateful to have you on the show any chance we get, man. So, and I'm sure again this won't be the last time. Obviously, I know you're busy, so we gotta find time to get you in here. But we love having you on here, and the people who listen to our show and watch it obviously love when you're on here. So, and you, like I said earlier, your input is unmatched. So,
thank you, boys. It's been fun.
Yeah, man. With that being said. For our show on Sunday, we will have another guest on here. His name is Bob Pizzini. He is a best-selling author, an award-winning CEO, a Navy Special Operations veteran, and an all-around hockey guy. He's got some pretty good ties with the Boston Bruins organization too. So I'm really excited as a Bruins fan to talk to him about that. That's going to be a really good show. So you definitely don't want to miss that one. And to stay up to date on everything, make sure you're following us on social media, whether it's Facebook or Instagram at Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, at Fresh Ice Hockey if you want. Not gonna lie, we pretty much do all our social media stuff on Facebook and Instagram, so that's where you want to follow us. Make sure to follow Brian on Instagram too, at Brian Fresh Ice.
I'm also on Twitter with the same handle.
Yes, that as well. And also make sure you follow Ben on Instagram at Ben Polaco, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I can't remember if it was Ben Polaco or Ben Polaco Fitness, but either way you type in his name, you're gonna find him.
Yep.
And if it doesn't have the blue check mark, it's not him.
Damn straight.
So, yeah.
I'm gonna make a bunch of Ben Polaco bot accounts just to screw with the algorithm.
$15 a month for that thing. You guys better get some use out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
50, holy cow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, and it didn't even give us the option on Instagram for that. Like, really? I was like, yeah. I don't know. I guess I'm just not cool enough.
I just got to be around like a certain amount of time or something.
Yeah, well, you've got a lot more followers than we do. So, but with that being said, I just want to thank Ben again for everything. Make sure if you're watching on YouTube, you like and subscribe. Help us out. If you're just listening, we appreciate you as always. Make sure to give us a rating or leave a review. Make sure to send us your questions. Contact at Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast. Or again, if you're watching on YouTube, you can leave them in the comments. I'm going to let Brian close out the show. However, don't take my line this week.
Hey, you laughed last time. It was worth it.
Yeah, but that's my line.
Yeah, as always, guys, thanks for tuning in. Ben, it was a pleasure, man. I hope we get to have you on again before the end of the playoffs and certainly before the draft or even right after the draft. We want to have you on again before the season's end. So let's make that happen sometime soon. But in the meantime, for you guys, for myself, for all the hockey fans, let's get ready to watch some great hockey the next couple months.
Yeah, man.
Let's go.
All right, guys. We'll see you on Sunday.
All right. Take care and comb your hair.